We got a hater in the White House and haters throughout the cabinet. But we're working on this. Watch this. Kristi Noem is gone. Pam Bondi is gone. And Pete Hegseth is next up.
Yes, the jihadi in charge of the Democrats in the House of Representatives. He hates the Jews. Boy, does he hate the Jews. Hegseth is next. This is, I got to tell you that saying Hegseth is next reminded me of a soundbite from yesterday. Kristi Noem is gone. Pam Bondi is gone. You sexists. You racists. That's Hakeem Jeffries, of course, the Democrat jihadi. Jihadi in charge. The JIC, the jihadi in charge in the House of Representatives, the Democrats, they're on the side of terrorists because they just don't like Western civilization. Kristi Noem is Pam Bondi is gone, and Pete Hegseth is next because they're just coming for scalps because they're the Klan. And, Hakeem Jeffries, he's the Klan of today. They've updated it. They put some slightly brownish people in there to lead the lynch mob. That way, you can't point out what they are. And Pete Hegseth, he's gone next. And it reminded me when Michael Piercy and I heard that soundbite of Hakeem Jeffries this morning. So that reminds me of the Pete Hegseth soundbite from yesterday, where he was talking about some of the work done that has been done in Iran on the leadership there.
The new Iranian regime understood that a deal was far better than the fate that awaited them. This new regime just happened to look at what happened to their predecessors. Their top leadership was systematically eliminated. Their previous Iranian supreme leader, dead. The Supreme National Security Council Secretary, dead. The Supreme Leader Office Advisor, dead. The Supreme Leader Military Office Chief, dead.
And Pete Hegseth went down the list. It reminded us this morning of Hakeem Jeffries with Kristi Noem, dead. Pam Bondi, dead. Pete Hegseth, next. It also reminds me of Animal House, of course, at the end of Delta House, when they, Niedermeyer, dead. The whole thing. I got to tell you. So Pete Hegseth ticked off the dead leadership of the Iranian Islamist revolution, the Islamic Revolution regime there. And he's like, Noem, dead. Bondi, dead. Hegseth, dead. Honestly, what are you going to do, these ridiculous people?
Kristi Noem is gone. Pam Bondi is gone. And Pete Hegseth is next up.
Yeah, there you go. I got to tell you, it's these guys. They're nothing but a mob of marauding, lynching, racist, sexist. He's a misogynist. He only listed 2 women. If he were a Republican, the news media would be all over him, saying, "Oh, look, he just listed the 2. Oh, they're going after Hegseth. He's a white guy. Yeah, he's a decorated combat vet. Let's go after him." Because the Democrats, they're a gang of violent criminals, mentally ill, gender dysphoric. They're not well at all. All right, let's go to some audio. Let's go to soundbite number 1. President Trump and NATO. The Democrats. First of all, I want to say this because this made me laugh and I didn't get to it the other day. The New York Times the other day had a full-page story on how terrible Trump is, and as across from another full-page story on how terrible Trump is. But the New York Times headline the other day, a banner headline on the interior of the newspaper, but from coast to coast on the page, a North American treaty organization without America. That's the New York Times. That's their banner headline right there, a North American treaty organization without America. Now, as any child of 6 can tell you anywhere in America, NATO stands for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization and not the North American Treaty Organization. But not only do they not follow the news, as I'm fond of saying because it's true, they're completely oblivious to pretty much everything that's taken place in human history and American history. And they don't like the United States or Western civilization. And the fake fact checkers are fact check. New York Times did publish headlines saying North American Treaty Organization without America. Should be Atlantic, not America. You know, honestly, they're just amazing. Everybody's an idiot. Everybody on the left is an idiot. They don't even know what NATO stands for at the New York Times. They have editors. They have separate headline editors. They have a headlines department. They have their national security department and editors. And here they are with the North American Treaty Organization without America. How about the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which is what it is, without the Atlantic? Oh, that's even more complicated. Climate change is getting really terrible. Now, let's go to, and the Democrats say, in the first Trump administration, they were screaming that Trump is destroying NATO and making NATO weaker, when in reality, Trump made NATO stronger by every measure, pushed our European so-called allies to pay the 2% of their gross domestic product that they had committed to pay into the shared defense by treaty, by the North Atlantic Treaty Organization agreement. And then they started paying the 2%. Then he went back to him and shamed him a bit more and got a bunch of countries to pay 5% of their GDP into the shared defense, making, in theory at least, NATO a much stronger, more powerful, more well-equipped defense organization, right? Now, Caroline Leavitt was, and the Democrats still say, he's ruining NATO. And then President Trump points out, well, here we are going to war against which is a little out of the blue, and it's true that we voted for President Trump to not be at war and all that good stuff, and to not be coarse and vulgar. That's up to the Democrats. But that aside, let's go to Caroline Leavitt, the lovely White House press secretary, yesterday at the White House being asked about President Trump and NATO and how President Trump is terrible for NATO.
I have a direct quote from the President of the United States on NATO, and I will share it with all of you. They were tested, and they failed. And I would add, it's quite sad that NATO turned their backs on the American people over the course of the last 6 weeks, when it's the American people who have been funding their defense. As you know, President Trump will be meeting with Secretary Ruta in a couple of hours here at the White House, and I know he looks forward to having a very frank and candid conversation with him.
It'll be frank and candid. It'll be candid and frank. Do you think it'll be more frank than candid, or more candid than frank? Yes, sir. They were tested, NATO was, and they failed. I still think President Trump should go to our European allies and tell them that it's time for them to pay off our national debt, because we've been defending you from the Kaiser's boys and the Socialist Workers' Party and the USSR for so long, and you guys have been, bouncing bonbons off your uvulas and slurping Chardonnay while we're building up our military and putting our men in harm's way, even our women in harm's way. The French, it's a different thing altogether. So you got that, and so they've turned their back on the United States, and after we fund their defense for generations, after we man the Fulda Gap, holding 50,000 Soviet tanks at bay, we man Checkpoint Charlie, we fly Night Watch 24 hours a day with airborne intelligence planes, keeping tabs on the bad guys. And President Trump is right, and Caroline Leavitt is right. They were tested, and they failed. Our NATO allies did. And they were a bunch of wussies, a bunch of cross-dressing wusses. So we got that. Now, something funny happened yesterday. Jake Tapper, longtime Democrat Party operative, CNN pays him millions to be a Democrat on CNN. And on CNN, Jake Tapper was doing an interview with, in town to meet with President Trump, the NATO Secretary General, Mark Rutte, who you just heard Caroline Leavitt mention. And he was at the White House and met with President Trump. And then he was invited to CNN and foolishly took him up on their offer. So the NATO Secretary General, Mark Rutte, with Jake Tapper, longtime Democrat Party apparatchik, and Jake Tapper is trying to get him to say, and he's trying repeatedly to get him to say, well, Trump is really bad, isn't he? And he's bad for NATO, isn't he? And he's wrecking NATO, isn't he? And he's causing war, isn't he? Oh, he's like put an end to one war after another. Jake Tapper and NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte.
You just came from a meeting at the White House with President Trump.
I did.
Not been hiding his frustrations with NATO countries. How was the meeting? Did he say he's withdrawing?
Let me be absolutely clear. He is clearly disappointed, with many NATO allies, and I can see his point. But at the same time, I was also able to point to the fact that the large majority of European nations has been helpful with basing, with logistics, with overflights, with making sure that they lived up to the commitments.
Oh, man, to make sure wait a minute, he's pressuring them to make sure they live up to the commitments, and that's not what Jake Tapper wanted to hear. Jake Tapper wanted to hear the Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte, say that Trump is making things really bad. It's awful. Since Trump got there, we can't defend a porta potty. We can't do anything. We're no good for anyone. Jake Tapper said, well, wait a minute, you didn't answer the question the way I wanted. Trump is terrible, isn't he?
Did the president say he was going to try to withdraw from NATO, or at the very least not support NATO as much as other presidents have?
Well, as I said, there is the disappointment, clearly. But at the same time, he was also listening careful to my arguments of what is happening. And I also pointed him to the fact that it was his leadership which brought about the Hague spending commitment. So the 5%, which is a transformational change in NATO. It is a transformational legacy he leaves behind.
The Hague Agreement, President Trump got NATO nations to pay 5% of their GDP into the shared defense, the common defense, the North American Treaty Organization of the New York Times, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization every place else. And here is Mark Rutte, and he's Danish, or he's Dutch. He's Dutch, not Danish, he's Dutch. And he says he's got a funny accent. He's European, just talk American. You know, when you're going to talk American, just talk American, sound American, for Pete's sake. So, yeah, the transformational legacy that Mark Rutte describes here, the head of NATO, and he's a Dutchman, and he's talking about, no, President Trump has been transformational, and 5%, the Hague Agreement, and all this stuff. And Jake Tapper is still like, but isn't he ruining everything? Come on, Trump is ruining everything. Don't ruin this for me.
How many NATO allied countries, a lot or a little, thought that the war that President Trump and Israel waged against Iran was illegal, was an illegal war? Do you think that's a prevalent view?
No, because NATO has always taken the position that degrading these capabilities of nuclear and the ballistic missiles is crucial, and that Iran can never get its hands on those two capabilities. There is widespread support for that point of view.
Widespread support for President Trump's point of view that Iran can never be allowed to acquire an arsenal of nuclear weapons and of ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles. And your Democrat Party, aren't they? But I said, no, actually, the opposite, Jake. You have no idea what you're talking about. Exactly the opposite of what you're talking about is true. No. NATO has always felt that degrading the nuclear capability, ballistic missile capability, crucial when it comes to Iran, because they're a terrorist organization, radical Islamic jihadi terrorists who will murder everybody, and that NATO agrees you can never have those capabilities. Jake Tapper is like, no, but wait a minute, really, isn't Trump making the world more dangerous?
Is the world safer today than it was before the war was started?
Absolutely, because, and this is thanks to President Trump's leadership, degrading these capabilities is really very important for your and my safety here in the U.S., in Europe, in the Middle East.
Absolutely, making the world safer everywhere in Europe, in the Middle East, the United States. Absolutely, President Trump making the world a safer place. And Jake Tapper is furious. I think he went home with his panties in a wedge, and just amazing stuff. I gotta tell you, you people, that's our news media. Yes, sir. And what did the Dutch Mark Rutte, head of NATO, Secretary General of NATO, what did he say? Oh, Trump has definitely made the world a much safer place. And Jake Tapper was just going, furious, kicking the leg of the table underneath it, furious. But that's the European head of NATO telling CNN and their audience, for that matter, the opposite of what they wanted to hear. Yes, sir. Right now, the voices in our culture are loud, you may have noticed, but truth is often silent or drowned out. And today, preborn needs you to help speak that truth. Women facing an unplanned pregnancy may be pressured to act quickly before they have time to pause and breathe and hear the truth about life and dignity and hope. But I refuse to be silent, you may have noticed, and I'm asking you to join me in that at Preborn Network of Clinics. A woman is welcomed with open arms and compassion and given a free ultrasound. And she sees the human life growing inside of her, often for the very first time. And in that scared moment, fear gives way to clarity, I tell you. And she's offered something the abortion industry would never offer, the hope of Jesus Christ and hope of life. This April, our goal is to have 11,000 gospel conversations in Preborn Network clinics, and you can help make that happen by sponsoring ultrasounds. Just $28 provides one ultrasound, $140 sponsors 5 ultrasounds for 5 mothers in crisis. Every dollar helps to save unborn babies and to share the hope of the gospel. To donate, all you have to do is dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby when prompted. That's dial pound 250, the keyword is baby, or you can go to Al Gore's Amazing Internet to preborn.com/plant. That's me, preborn.com/plant. Yes, sir. So we've got that. Yeah. So the head of NATO is, he's doing PR for President Trump, and it would be fair to say Jake Tapper is not.
Is the world safer today than it was before the war was started?
Absolutely. And this is thanks to President Trump's leadership.
All right, let's go to the telephones. Let's go to Ross, calling from Front Royal, Virginia. Ross, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hello, Chris.
Hey, man.
As you may know, I am a long-time listener. I am a devout listener. In 99.999% of the time, I agree with you. But this is going to be one time I disagree with you.
Okay.
Talk is cheap. Mm-hmm. And what has gone on in recent times it came out of the closet. The Europeans have always paid lip service. And just like the other day, we're with you type of thing, it's no different than a few weeks ago, the German foreign minister, the same thing, all have been with you. The same thing as Stallmer did a while back, all we're with you. And like the French froggy macaroni did too. They all do it. They are not with us. They want us to be there to take care of them. Everything from the Berlin airlift to tanks that stood at Checkpoint Charlie to save them from their perpetual enemies, but they don't have any skin in this game.
Yeah, you're certainly right about that, and you're right that they've proved it once again. Our news media is they're the number one enemy of the American government when Republicans are in charge. And they're the number one fluffers when Democrats are in charge. Yes, sir. And we've got the Vice President of the United States. And still, I think the President should come out and call on the Europeans to pay off our national debt. Come on, it's only $37 trillion. If we, and I love this stat because I came up with myself using the Beaumont calculator, $37 trillion. If it were 37 trillion seconds and we were paying off the national debt at $1 per second, it would take us more than 1 million years to pay off the national debt because 37 trillion seconds is more than 1 million years. And that's pretty wild, I got to say. Yes, sir. We got that going. All right, now let's. We've got more to get to here, because the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, touring parts of Europe, and in Hungary, Hungry Man Sandwich, and they named a country after that. Isn't that crazy? In Hungary, J.D. Vance in Hungary, and he was asked about Iran and Iran playing the games. I read to you the checklist of 10 things that Iran is demanding. we get to control the Strait of Hormuz, and we get to continue to enrich uranium, and we get to kill the Jews, is basically the thing. And that list of 10 is not going to work. This is not going to last. This peace with Iran is simply not going to last. There are belligerent actor. President Trump is having none of their guff. The Europeans are like, oh, Trump has made NATO stronger than ever before. But we're still not going to do anything because we're Euros and we're bouncing bonbons off of our uvulas. And we have been for generations now. And they don't even say, hey, thanks for the, winning World War I against the Kaiser, winning World War II against the Socialist Workers' Party of Adolf Hitler, and holding the Soviet bear at bay for generations. And we had one of our brilliant callers talking about the tanks, manning Checkpoint Charlie and defending the Fulda Gap, where the Soviet army was going to come rolling through. And they did have 50,000 tanks that they were planning on rolling on Western Europe. And we kept Europe, Western Europe at least, prosperous and free for, all the time it wasn't being occupied by the Germans, amazing stuff. And you guys, you're welcome. You're welcome. And who was it? Oh, there was a European the other day who was mocking President Trump, saying this is one of our greatest, the attack on Iran. This is one of our greatest military operations in our history. And there was a Frenchman that mocked him. You see this, a French politician that mocked him. And the response was, you're probably right. Our greatest invasion was probably landing hundreds of thousands of troops on the beaches of Normandy to liberate you from the Nazis. So that invasion might have been greater. Now sit down and shut up, or however you say that in French. So here's J.D. Vance in Hungary talking about Iran. And I fully expect Iran, well, first of all, there are already reports today that they're mining. They're dropping sea mines in the Strait of Hormuz and the key sea passageway, which is just about 2 miles wide, I think. I think the entire stretch is about 22 miles wide, but the channel for the ships is about 2 miles wide. And the troglodytes, they're reportedly dropping more sea mines in the path so that ships can't get through because they've got power. They're going to abuse it. They're like Democrats, Kind of the same thing all over the place. But here's J.D. Vance in Hungary saying, hey, we're trying to be reasonable here, Iran. Let's talk. Let's sit down. We'll have a shawarma. And we'll have a cocktail. You can have apple cider, whatever you do.
I encourage the Iranians to come to the table seriously. We've seen some signs that they're going to do that. We've seen some signs of bravado. Fundamentally, we're in a good spot. They're reopening the straits. We have a ceasefire. And frankly, if they break their end of the bargain, then they're going to see some serious consequences.
Serious consequences. They break. When they violate all over the place their side of the bargain, which you can guarantee. I'm not a big betting guy, but you can go online and you can bet on anything now. They have all these betting venues and apps and websites and things that you can go bet on anything. There's probably a bet running right now, a market running on when the bombing will start again, because Iran is not interested in having a civil conversation. They're interested in murdering you and cutting your head off and slamming it on a steel pike in the front yard, because that's what they do. Now, the Benjamin Netanyahu, what did Mike the Lib say about it? That he tricked Benjamin Netanyahu, the Jews, tricked me and Donald Trump into voting for Donald Trump, and all of us voting for Donald Trump, and then tricked Donald Trump into attacking Iran, because the Jews are very crafty, and they can trick you. They can trick you, those Jews. That's what Mike the Lib, career U.S. intelligence officer, was telling us there. Here is the prime minister of the Jewish state, the only Jewish state, Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. He's got a translator because he's speaking a funny Middle Eastern language, and he's talking about the war that they have been waging along with us against Iran, the world's number one state sponsor of terror.
We have more goals to complete, and we will achieve them either by agreement or by renewing the fighting. We are prepared to return to fighting at any moment necessary. Our finger is on the trigger.
Fingers on the trigger. And then the Democrats attack Netanyahu. Now, Iran is dedicated to wiping Israel off the face of the earth, killing everybody in it, perpetrating genocide, a racist genocide, an anti-Semitic genocide. And the Democrats kind of shrug and say, well, they'd do the same thing, is the bottom line, because they're not on team civilization. They're on team murder everybody, as the left was in the 20th century all over the place. I'm telling you. Now, the truth is, of course, that the Iranian military has been pummeled. President Trump kept using the word decimated, and that would suffice, although I still think of that as killing 1 in 10, the old Roman standard, Rome decimated. But President Trump talking about how the Iranian military and Caroline Leavitt as well wiped out their Navy, wiped out their Air Force. How many? The next Iranian Navy is going to have to be a Navy of glass-bottom boats. Huh? What's that? So they can see the old Iranian Navy. See, the new Iranian Navy will have glass-bottom boats so they can see the old Iranian Navy. That's actually an old Italian joke, updated for the Iranians, because they lost their Navy more than once, too, the Italians. But there it is. And Netanyahu is saying, well, we have more goals, and we'll achieve them either by agreement or by bombing the snot out of them, by fighting, he said. We're prepared to return to fighting. Our finger is on the trigger. The Democrats, their finger's always on the trigger, isn't it? Everywhere you go. Isn't that amazing? But there is the Iranians are going around saying, we have won. We have driven the Americans out. And the Jews, the Israelis, we've driven them out. And now we are in control of the Strait of Hormuz. And Iran is saying, we have won. We've won the fight, the contest, the war. Iran is saying they've won, and they've driven out the American infidels and the Israeli infidels, and that they've actually won. Now, again, they've had their leadership decapitated. I played a little bit of Pete Hegseth going down the list of the Iranian leadership that has been eliminated, that has been killed. We always start using euphemisms like eliminated in situations like that. They've been bombed to death and killed, and their leaders all over the place, dead, right? And now the Iranians are saying, oh, no, we won. They lost their Navy. They lost their Air Force. They've lost much of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps leadership, of the IRGC and of their military, and some political leaders. And now they've got the cross-dressing Gayatollah, whose father was the old Gayatollah, the old Ayatollah. And the old Ayatollah, who's dead now, didn't want his son to become the next Ayatollah because his son is gay, and he doesn't want to have a Gayatollah. He thinks people might make fun of Iran, so he didn't want that. But in any case, the Iranian military just slaughtered, butchered, decimated, pummeled, beaten into the ground, and they're saying, yeah, we won this. Looks like we won this. And naturally, when we were talking about that, Michael, Piercy, and I were reminded of only one thing.
You stupid bastard, you've got no arms left.
The Black Knight.
Look! It's just a flesh wound. Right!
Oh, here goes his leg.
Right, I'll do you for that. You what? Come here. What are you going to do, bleed on me?
Hopping on one leg.
The Black Knight always triumphs.
Oh, now he chopped his last leg off.
We'll call it a draw. Come, Patsy. Oh, I see. Running away, eh? You yellow bastard! I'll bite your legs off!
See, that's Iran is like the Black Knight in Monty Python in the Search for the Holy Grail at the Bridge of Death, right? The Black Knight at the Bridge of Death. That he said, and the knight, who was it? Lancelot came along, chopped one arm off, then the other arm, then he said, hey, back here. And he said, what are you going to do, bleed on me? Chops one leg off, right? Then he chops the other leg off, and then his torso is sitting there on the ground. It's a great meme going around on the internet with the Black Knight having both legs and both arms chopped off and at the Bridge of Death and saying, come back, I'll bite your legs off. Because that's pretty much what Iran is doing right now. They're like, oh, I'll get you. I'll show you. You'll do nothing of the kind.
The Supreme Leader, dead. The Supreme National Security Council Secretary, dead.
Left
the
arm.
Supreme Leader Office Advisor, dead.
Right
the Supreme
leg.
Leader Military Office Chief, dead.
Left
the
leg.
Defense Minister, no longer with us.
Yeah, and it's kind of like that. And the Iranians are like, hey, we've won. Look at us, we've won. They are like Democrats in so many ways, aren't they? Yes, they are. Wah, wah, wah. Crazy, man. Crazy, man, crazy. In Bloomfield, New Jersey today, there is a gathering, an event going on there of Gold Star families created by the Democrats. That is the family members of people murdered by illegal aliens that the Democrat Party brought into the country to murder us. And the Democrats, they're on the side of the murderers. They're not on our side. They're not on the side of the good guys. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, but the Black Knight, I don't know if we posted the Black Knight having been dismembered all over the place, but pretty amazing stuff. Yes, sir. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, this one made us laugh yesterday. We gathered this one yesterday. Let's go to soundbite number 9. The self-described socialist at MS-13 DNC, Lawrence O'Donnell, who's not a bright man, and he's very angry that the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, said that it's the policy of the U.S. military to leave no man behind.
That brilliant rescue was described by the Secretary of Defense and by General Dan Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, as a long-standing American military rule of never leaving anyone behind.
We leave no man behind.
That is, of course, the old-school version of the idea back when only men flew American military planes.
Oh.
General Dan Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, put it this way.
Only men.
We leave no one behind.
The general knows, unlike Pete Hegseth, that could have been a woman they were trying to rescue, and it might be a woman the next time.
Yeah, so you shouldn't say we leave no man behind like Hegseth did, because it could be a woman. And there's Raisin Kane, and he said we leave no one behind. See? And we were talking about this yesterday. It reminded me of the TV commercials for Ace Hardware. Right? Because Ace is the place with the helpful hardware. Folks. Now it says folks instead of man. Used to be the helpful hardware man. Now it's the helpful hardware folks.
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
No, I can't. What am I, some kind of a biologist or something? Would I go to law school? What am I, want to be a Supreme Court justice? Hey, wait a minute. What am I doing here? There it is. So the socialist Lawrence O'Donnell very upset that Pete Hegseth said we leave no man behind because it could be a woman. Could be a woman. And with the Democrats, it could be a woman with a penis because they're mentally ill when it comes to these things. Just amazing. And on MS-13 now, Barack Hussein Obama's Deputy National Security Advisor, very angry, Ben Rhodes. He lied a lot when he was in the public eye. And that's why MS-13 brought him back, to lie to them and to their dozens of viewers. So here is Barack Obama's Deputy National Security Advisor, Ben Rhodes, on MS-13, naturally. And they're just make stuff up, or just make up history and say it's true.
There's nothing in modern American history anywhere near this. He threatened to commit genocide. He threatened to wipe out a thousands-year-old civilization. He threatened to bomb civilian targets that have nothing to do with any military objectives. He threatened mass murder on an epic scale. And whether he ends up doing it or not, he's already committed a war crime. And this will color the opinion of the United States for a generation around the world.
It's going to color the United States for a generation around the world because he's already committed a war crime talking about bombing power plants. And Ben Rhodes, he's a Democrat.
There is no moral high ground anymore. He effectively casts the United States as acting like a rogue nation led by an autocrat who doesn't value any human life whatsoever. And those are pretty serious words, but that's what he said. I mean,
I can't believe you're saying these words.
It wasn't the first time. Yeah.
I mean, we've all been critical of presidents and different leaders. This is different. This is not critical of. This is completely in a different space.
Ali Velci, it's the end of civilization.
People watching this need to think about the fact that power plants are connected to power grids and hospitals. And the first people to die would be children in the NICU, old people on ventilators. The most vulnerable civilians would die immediately if you bomb power plants.
Harvest their organs. The Democrats do that 1 million times a year in the United States alone. But they're okay with that. They give out awards for that, lucite blocks. for that. They actually do. Yeah, but I do have to say it. I've said it before. President Trump saying what he said was a little like, okay, maybe you should send that one to rewrite. Calling for the end of civilization, any civilization. That line is going to be a punchline in Washington politics for generations to come now. And people are going to use it as a prank line. Oh, hey, there goes France. We're going to wipe out your civilization. It's going to become a running joke in Washington for decades to come, I can promise you. But the news media is already a joke and has been for decades. The Ali Velchis and Ben Rhodes of the world. Oh, yeah, it's a war crime. Oh, no, there are children connected and old people. The electricity goes to hospitals. They just want peaceful nuclear energy. Everyone in the Democrat Party is a tard.
I can't believe you're saying these words.
The Washington Times, the great Washington Times, has an update on their editorial page on the Canadians killing people, putting them to sleep, the state. Canadian euthanasia's surge shows the dangers of doctors becoming hitmen. And I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but listen to this. They have this, what do they call it, MAID, the Medical Assistance in Dying Program, MAID. And by June of this year, they will have killed 100,000 Canadians by euthanasia. Listen to this. An 84-year-old woman recently disclosed that when she was brought to the Vancouver General Hospital with intense back pain, the first doctor she saw in the emergency room offered to euthanize her. Oh, your back hurts. Well, we could kill you. We could put you to sleep. This is in the name of liberalism, by the way. And they're slowing the rise of the oceans. There will be fewer people on the planet. And then they had the kid. They put this guy to sleep, right? 23 years old, because he had seasonal affective disorder and diabetes. So 23 years old, they put him to sleep.